it's Ashley Bookish From, and I am back with another video. Happy Juneteenth. It is such a beautiful day that it is Juneteenth. If you don't know what Juneteenth is, I am not going to use this as an educational piece right now. Open up a new tab, Google it, read a little, and then come back to this video. Okay, so now that you know what Juneteenth is, I am here to share 25 children's, middle grade, and YA books written by Black authors with Black characters. This is by no means a full list. It's only 25 books. It includes 10 children's, 5 middle grade, and 10 YA. This, like I said, is not even an exhaustive list of what I have read, but for time's sake, there's no way I can go over every book that I have ever read by a Black author with Black character. It would just be, it'd be too much. So I decided to kind of condense it down. If this video gets good response, I will look into possibly doing a part 2 of this video. Plus, as I read more, I will make sure that I let you guys know what I'm reading. I have a exhaustive list. Well, that list is not even exhaustive. I have a longer list, which includes also like graphic novels, comics, and adult books, and nonfiction on Twitter. So I'll link that thread down below for you guys to check out if you want to see more in a quicker pace than just waiting for me to come out with a video. So I'm going to go ahead and get started because this is going to be long. What I did attempt to do with this list is pick titles that a lot of people may not be familiar with. There probably are titles that are a little bit more on the popular side that people have heard of or have come across in their lifetime, but I'm hoping that for each person that watches this list, there's at least 1 or 2 titles that you've never heard of before. That way you could go out and explore something new. Now, in the children's section, I do have a combination of what we call chapter books and picture books, so it's going to be a mix of those. And then middle grade, usually in the library world, also in the publishing industry, is usually categorized for ages 8 through 12, whereas YA is for 12 to 18. Now, some of the titles on this list can be kind of flexible, meaning that they can cross lines, so don't take this as a definitive like, oh, this is a children's book, because there are some picture books that are on this list that can be used in like a middle grade level or even like a YA level. It just depends on what context you're using them in, but I won't get into that. I did not go into the age groups for these books. That just would have been too much work. I wish I could do that for y'all, but it is a very time-consuming practice to have to sit down and write the intended age audience for every single book. Maybe in the future I can come up with a better list that actually does break it down by age group, but for right now I just have general age demographic that these books are geared towards, and not just the individual books. So let's go ahead and get started. So this video is not too long. It's gonna be long anyway. All right, so let's start with our children's category. The first book that we have in the children's category is one that people probably have read before or have come across in their childhood because it was published in the 1980s, and that is Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters by John Stepton. Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters is a reading rainbow book as well as a Caldecott honor book, and it is in many ways a retelling of Cinderella, and it is a great insight for children to become acclimated to the history, culture, and geography of Zimbabwe. It is about a father by the name of Mufaro who has 2 daughters, and the king of the land is asking for a queen, can only choose one. So there is the opportunity for these 2 daughters to possibly become the queen, and they have 2 strikingly different personalities. The first daughter, Nyasha, is very sweet, very kind, but no one else really sees that because she's outshined by her wicked and very selfish sister by the name Menyara. So this book takes you on a journey to see which of these 2 young ladies possibly will become the queen of the land. It is beautifully illustrated, one of my favorite picture books of all time. I absolutely love it. If you have not ever heard of this book, definitely check. The next picture book is one that I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of because it was written by Lupita Nyong'o, and it is a Savoy, and it was illustrated by Vashti Harrison. Just a small plug, if you've never seen any of Vashti Harrison's work, I would recommend checking out some more books by her. Her artwork is just phenomenal. It's beautiful. She's just a great asset to the children's literature community. But Savoy is a book about a young girl by the name of Savoy who is a darker skin color than the rest of her family, and the book is a whimsical tale of how she comes to understand how important it is for her to accept her darker skin color. This book is a great insight to the theme of colorism that the Black community deals with on a daily basis, especially our Black women who have a darker complexion, who face so much just discrimination for being a darker skinned woman. So if you want to understand more about colorism, but maybe on a younger level, I would definitely recommend checking out this picture book. The next book that I have on this list is actually a nonfiction picture book, and it is Freedom in Congo Square by Carol Weatherford. And this is a great insight to a square that was in Louisiana, New Orleans specifically, and what ended up happening is historically slaves and free Black individuals would come and meet in that square one specific day of the week just to interact and be free and to just enjoy themselves instead of thinking about the hard labor that they did every other day of the week. This book is phenomenal. The artwork is just dynamic. It does so much storytelling of its own outside of the text, and if you're looking for some introduction to nonfiction, and not just for kids but as adults, because I know for me, I used to have a hard time reading nonfiction, but I still wanted to educate myself about certain things, so I actually would look at nonfiction picture books to gain some sort of nonfiction knowledge without delving maybe into adult nonfiction. So if you're newer to nonfiction, I will say that this is a great place to start. Even though people think that picture books are solely for children, they're not. I don't know why we run with that narrative. So if you're interested in learning more about this topic, I definitely would recommend checking out this book. The next book that I have, the next picture book that I have here, is also nonfiction, and it is Brick by Brick by Charles R. Smith Jr. And this is a story about the people who contributed to building the White House, which included free hands, slave hands, Black hands, white hands, and it is told in poetry, and it really gives you insight to exactly how the White House was built, despite certain narratives that certain individuals attempted to create. It is a beautiful picture book. Prior to reading this picture book, I had no idea about the history behind building the White House, and I learned a heck of a lot reading this picture book. So once again, if you're interested in learning more about the history of the United States and the role that Black people have played in building up this country, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. The next one that I have here is definitely one that I think a lot of people are familiar with in terms of the author, but maybe not so much the book, and it is This Is the Rope by Jacqueline Woodson. Jacqueline Woodson is oh my gosh, an amazing author, not only in adult literature, but in children's and middle grade literature. If you have not read anything by Jacqueline Woodson, Google her, look at her backlist, pick something up, just start somewhere. She's just phenomenal. This Is the Rope is a picture book that is not necessarily nonfiction, but it does discuss a little bit about the Great Migration. And this is one that personally spoke to me because I have family split between the South and the North, and that has a lot to do with the Great Migration. And the story focuses on literally a rope that is passed down from generation to generation, and it's linked towards the stories of the Great Migration and how they ended up from the South. I believe that Jacqueline Woodson is from Greenville, South Carolina, and it tells a little bit about that transitioning from the South to the North and how that has affected families. And this one, just now, just talking about it, is so great to reflect upon, because the Great Migration has some really dark aspects to it, and how Black people were forced essentially to stay in an area where they didn't want to be because it wasn't safe anymore, and the lengths that they went through in order to escape from being in the South. And this is post-slavery. It's just a phenomenal story. It's an amazing aspect of history. I have another adult nonfiction book that I want to read, The Warmth of Other Suns, that talks about the Great Migration. And if you want to start somewhere, or if this is a place where you want to start your children off and learning about the Great Migration, I definitely would recommend checking out this one. The next one that I have is from another pivotal children's book author, and that is Going Down Home with Daddy by Kelly Starling Lyons. Kelly has a lot of backlist stuff. If you've never picked up her books either, I definitely would recommend. She has both picture books and chapter books. I don't know if she has anything that's middle grade, but I do know for a fact that she has picture books and chapter books. That would be great to check out. But Going Down Home with Daddy is a book about a group of kids that are traveling back to the South to meet with their family, because it's a family reunion, and along the way they're learning a lot about their history, a lot of cultural stories. And this is one that resonated a lot with me, because a lot of my family had moved from the North. They moved from the South to the North and then back to the South. So I have a lot of ties to the South, and there's a lot of history rooted in that, and Lyons definitely explores a lot of that within this story. It is a very unique story. It's one that I definitely resonated with as well. The artwork is beautiful. I think this is one that all children should read, because it shows the importance of intergenerational stories, and it just phenomenal. I just can't speak highly enough of her as a person and as an author. The next book that I have is the second work of a highly acclaimed author, and that is King of Kindergarten by Derek Barnes. You may have heard of Derek Barnes because he also wrote Crown Ode to the Fresh Cut, which is a wonderful picture book that talks about the importance of barbershops in the Black community and how they play such a vital role in the lives of Black boys and Black men. And it was such a pivotal novel. It was not even a novel, it was a picture book, but it was such a pivotal picture book. So when I found out that Derek Barnes had written a second one, which is King of Kindergarten, I definitely knew that I had to check it out. And King of Kindergarten is basically just about this young Black boy's first day going to kindergarten, and it's about him building this self-confidence to make friends and to be successful in kindergarten. And what I like about Derek Barnes is that he puts Black boys at the forefront of his books, which is something that I think Black boys need to see. While I have my feelings about the way that Black women are treated as opposed to Black men, I think that when it comes to literature, Black men are less likely to see themselves, especially Black boys. So I always have such a high level of respect for authors who put Black boys at the forefront. They write for Black boys to encourage Black boys to read, and this is one of those picture books. So if you are interested in learning more just about Derek Barnes, I would definitely recommend checking out both of his books, even though I didn't technically have Crown on this list, but definitely just check him out. He's just a phenomenal creator. I think that everyone should have access to his books. The next one that I have is Dancing in the Wings by Debbie Allen. Yes, the Debbie Allen wrote a picture book called Dancing in the Wings, and this is about a young Black girl who is interested in becoming a ballerina, which, first of all, that's super important because I don't know how often you see Black ballerinas. We do have some that are definitely big names in the industry, but it is not known for being the most diverse profession. So anytime that I can see a Black woman in the profession of being a ballerina, I gravitate towards those books. And this is one that I randomly found. I, prior to reading this, did not know that Debbie Allen had even written a book. And it focuses, like I said, on this girl who's interested in becoming a ballerina, but she's taller than everyone else. She has bigger feet than everybody else. She gets picked on. People tell her that she's not good enough. It's all about her building her confidence to be able to go to this special dance conservatory and be able to dance with some of the greatest. And the artwork was just so beautiful. The story was so beautiful. It is so important to see young Black girls just building their confidence in whatever they do, and this book definitely addresses that. So if you have not read this one, you need to make sure you read this one. The next book that I have is also about ballerinas, and it is Plummet Fantastic by Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know how many people know that Whoopi Goldberg actually wrote a series of children's chapter books that are about girls who go to this school in Harlem for ballerinas. It is such a cute book. It's kind of, there's no big meaning behind it, but it's just kind of this whimsical, very interesting take on these young girls who are building their confidence and going to this school and learning to be ballerinas. And our main character has just moved to Harlem. She didn't want to go, but her mom moves her there, and she becomes a ballerina, and she's overcoming her stage fright. It's just a cute contemporary chapter book, and I was so surprised when I saw it. I was like, Whoopi Goldberg wrote a children's contemporary chapter book? That's completely random, but it is phenomenal. So if you're looking for more of a chapter book, I would say like between the grades of maybe like 2nd to 3rd grade, I would definitely recommend this one. And the last one that I have in this list is Nicki and Aja by Karen English. This is the first book in another chapter book series about these two girls by the name of Nicki and Aja. They're best friends, they do everything together, and then a new girl moves in, and she's not so nice, and they attempt to exclude her from everything, and it does not really turn out that well. Of course, I mean, they're young, they don't know, but it is a cute, easy read. I think the first time that I read this, I read it in like 45 minutes or less, but it has great illustrations. Karen English is a brilliant author, so if you haven't checked out any of the Nicki and Aja books, I think there's probably 4 or 5 books in this series, but if you've never read any of them, I would recommend them. All right, y'all, so that's it for the children's section. Now we're going to go on and move forward to the middle grade books. The first book that I have in this section, well, the first 2 books that I have in this section are both by the same author, because I could not have possibly made this list without including him. So you guys probably are going to be familiar with these. And the first one is Ghost by Jason Reynolds. This is the first book in his track series, and it is about a young boy by the name of Ghost who is used to kind of just playing basketball, kind of, you know, keeping to himself. He plays basketball, but he challenges one of the elite track star team members and beats him, and that's when the coach sees that he has this potential and he puts him on the team. But Ghost has some serious familial issues going on in the background, and Jason Reynolds does an excellent job dealing with an absent parent, alcoholism. There's a lot that goes into this book, even though it is small and it is just a middle grade novel. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm so angry at myself that I have not finished the rest of the series, but I think I'm waiting because I want to purchase the series, because I just want to own all of Jason Reynolds' works, because he's just the man. I am a stan for Jason Reynolds. I love Jason Reynolds. I met him last year, and he is so adorable in person. He's super shy, and I was super shy. And you know what? I'm just going to put a picture here of us together, and he's just, he makes my heart smile. But anyway, this is just a phenomenal series. Each book in the series does follow a different character, so I just check it out, y'all. If you have not read Ghost yet, it is one of the best middle grade books that I have read in a very long time. The next book that I have, by Jason Reynolds, I've seen this both ways. Now, I've seen it marketed as YA, and I've seen it marketed as middle grade. I kind of feel like it can float between the two, so I'm gonna put it in middle grade. And it is Look Both Ways, and it is the story about just 10 groups of students who intercross paths in different ways without really knowing it. And this is all happening between the time of people getting out of school. It is such a unique book, and one that I plan on rereading, and one that I recommend listening to on audio, because for each story there's a different narrator, and the stories are so strikingly different from each other, but then they all are together at the same time. And I think Jason Reynolds' intent with this book was to show us how we may all come from different walks of life, but at some point our paths, our journeys, our ambitions, our goals, our dreams, they intersect with each other. And it was just so good job. It was just such a phenomenal book. I definitely will be rereading this one again. So that's just another Jason Reynolds for you guys to check out. The next book that I have on this list is One Crazy Summer by Rita WilliamsGarcia. I think this is one that people have pretty much heard of before, and it's about these three sisters who end up going to Oakland, California in the 60s, and they are going to look for their mother who abandoned them. And it is such a dynamic story because their mother is part of the Black Panthers. So you get a little bit of historical fiction, a little bit of history itself tied into this book, and it comes across as a contemporary slash historical fiction, and is part of a series. I have the rest of the series. So I have PSB 11, which is the second book, and then the third book is Gone Crazy in Alabama. So I've only read this one, but if you're looking for a great series to check out, a great middle grade series to check out that has some historical fiction in it, a very different look at the Black Panther Party than what I think a lot of people are taught in their classrooms, I would recommend checking these out. And the last one that I have on my middle grade list is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. I've had a Jacqueline Woodson book in the children's section, and this is a non-fiction autobiography written in verse, and it's about Jacqueline Woodson's own experience from moving from Greenville, South Carolina up north, and it takes place across the 60s and 70s. It is such a phenomenal book. I have not read it in a while, but I absolutely love this because I think I just absolutely love Jacqueline Woodson. So if you're looking for a nonfiction narrative written in verse that is about the experiences of growing up in the South and having to move to the North. I know my mom went through a similar thing as Jacqueline Woodson. She moved from South Carolina to New York as well. So if you want insight to that and what that experience is like and how discrimination and racism are prevalent in both the South and the North, but the way that it's handled is differently, check this out. All right, so we are here in the last section, which is our YA section, which a lot of people get YA recommendations on BookTube. BookTube is very YA heavy, and I've seen a lot of titles that have been floating around. So you will not see stuff like The Hate You Give or anything by Nick Stone in this list, not because I don't like them or I don't love their works. It's because they are so heavily recommended, and I wanted to give you guys some other things to choose from that you may find interesting that are also written by Black authors with Black characters. So the first one that I have on this list is one that I read last year, just came out last year. I haven't really seen anybody on BookTube talking about this, and I received this for review, and it's Girls Like Us by Randy Pink. And this is a story about several different girls growing up in the 60s and 70s, and what happens when women were not given the option to control what happened to their bodies when they ended up pregnant, when there was no choice. This book is very heavy. It is not an easy read. There are instances of rape. There is discussion about abortion. There's just a lot, y'all. There's mental abuse, emotional abuse. It has a very, very heavy book. But this book also was written around the time that Alabama was going through this huge discussion about women's rights and what a woman could and could not do with her body. So it was a very timely book, and it is a very important book, and I wish that more people were talking about it. I know that Randy Pink had written a book prior to this one called Into White, which a lot of people did not like, but I thought that this one was really good. And I know some of the complaints associated with this book are, well, you know, what was the purpose if people couldn't decide what they wanted to do with their bodies? That's the point, because it is truly a historical book. So when people were living in those times, even around the times of Roe versus Wade, still women were not allowed to make those decisions. So If you're looking for something that has a complex message behind it, I definitely would recommend this one. I did end up really enjoying this one. I think I ended up giving it 5 stars when I read it. The next book that I have here is a non-fiction YA book, and it's How Dare the Sunrise by Sandra. And I never say her last name because I always butcher it. I've looked up pronunciation guides and I always butcher it, and I always feel so bad. But this is about Sandra's story of growing up in the Democratic Republic of Congo and how she was able to essentially escape a massacre, and how she was moved from the Democratic Republic of Congo to the United States while there was some other traveling that happened. And she didn't directly come to the United States, some traveling that happened in between. And the amount of trauma that she goes through, even when she gets to the United States, how inadequately she is prepped for her experience here in the United States. It was such an eye-opening read. It's such a heartbreaking read because I think sometimes people think, oh, you know, if we bring refugees over here, then we make sure that they're good and that's it. And it's like, sometimes they're not even prepared for the transition, and there's no one there to help them transition from their native countries to being here in the United States, where it's so culturally different, and the amount of racism that I think some people do face once they get here, and not really understanding how Black people in this country are treated, it can be kind of a shocker. So it was just a wonderful reward being able to read about her experience and how she triumphed over so many different hurdles. And it was just, I wish that this book would have gotten more push. I just don't remember a lot of people reading it or talking about it when it came out, but it is one that I genuinely did enjoy and really did love. The next one that I have here is American Street by E.B. Savoy. I know you guys probably have heard of E.B. Savoy because of her 2 other books, Pride and My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich, but this was her first book, and it was so good. It's so good. This is the story about a young girl by the name of Fabiola, and her and her mother try to immigrate from Haiti to the United States. Her mother gets stopped at customs, so Fabiola has to become an immigrant to the United States by herself. And I believe that she ends up in Detroit. Yeah, she ends up in Detroit, and she's not accustomed to the experience of being Black in America and what it's like to be here. She has to navigate what the American dream means. There's some magical realism tied in. She discusses a lot of important themes in this book, and it was so good. This is one that I really want to reread soon because I really enjoyed this one. But if you did not know, or if you weren't aware, this is E.B. Savoy's first book, and it is an excellent book. The next book that I have here is by an OG writer that a lot of people don't talk about on BookTube, and it just drives me crazy. I spoke about this a little bit during the town hall, and it is Copper Sun by Sharon Draper. Sharon Draper is the OG. She writes YA, she writes middle grade, she writes children's. She's just the bomb. I met her maybe 3 years ago now, and she's just bomb. And this is one of her YA novels that is phenomenal. This is a slave narrative. It is about a young girl by the name of Amari, and Amari is taken from her country. She's sold into slavery, and she ends up meeting with this indentured servant by the name of Polly, and they try to escape to Florida to get freedom, the two of them. This book is dark. It has a lot of triggers to it. It never goes all the way there, but it gets just close enough. I remember talking about this because I use this for a book club at my job for some of the community members, and that was one thing that they said about it, was that she knew how to take it just to that point, but she never crossed that line where it was super dark. But it is a slave narrative, and she did a lot of research on this book, and it is one that I highly recommend. I just recommend Sharon Draper as an author. If you've never heard of Sharon Draper, please check her out. The next one that I have here is a graphic novel, and this is one that breaks my heart every time that I talk about it. I had to read this one for my YA lit class when I was in school getting my master's of library information science, and it is Yummy, The Last Days of a Southside Shorty. And this actually, like I said, this is based on a true story. It happened in August of 1994. And Yummy, which is his nickname, actually fired shots into a rival gang trying to impress a gang that he wanted to be a part of. And several days later, that same gang ended up killing him. And he was 11. And as a parent, that is so hard to read, because I think he was set up to look like such a horrible kid, and that he was just a thief. He had a lot of different, outside of this, he had a lot of different charges. He had a couple of bad run-ins with the police prior to this, and he was set up to be a villain, but he was a child. I mean, this was a baby. And this graphic novel explores how he got wrapped up into this world of crime and violence, and how certain situations are set up to beget violence that begets more violence that begets more violence. And just to read this book and just to see and read about his experiences, it was tough. It was really tough. But I think that this is one that people should pick up, and it is one that I know nobody on BookTube talks about, but it is a very, very pivotal graphic novel. All right, so the next book that I have on here is kind of a strange one, because it's not one that I enjoyed completely. I think a lot of people have trouble with this one because it is such an important book and is written by an OG author, but it's hard to get into, and it's Monster by Walter Dean Myers. This is one that I know like a lot of kids are now being asked to read as part of their school curriculum, and it is about a young man who gets caught up in the legal system, and he is a pawn essentially because a store owner is murdered, and he supposedly is a lookout, but he didn't necessarily pull the trigger, and he's on trial for felony murder. And I think he's looking at possibly going away for life. The way it's told is very strange. I didn't particularly enjoy the format, but I'm recommending it here. And this is probably weird because it's like, well, if you didn't really like it that much, why are you recommending it? I'm recommending it because it holds an important place in Black literature. Walter Dean Myers is very important to Black literature. This book is important because it shows you how messed up the judicial system is. And that's the part of this book that I think is extremely important. Format wise, not my favorite, because it's told almost like it's written in like a screenplay type of format, which was just not my jam. But the message behind the book is super important, so that is why this one is on this list. If you don't feel comfortable checking this one out, I would just recommend picking up anything by Walter Dean Myers, because he is the king of Black realistic fiction for teens, and I think that more people need to know that he's out there writing realistic fiction for teens. Like, this is the man who wrote about so much of the stuff that you see like Angie Thomas and Nick Stone writing about. He has been doing this for decades, so definitely check his stuff out. The next one that I have here is Drama High: The Fight by Elle Devine. This is part of the Drama High series. If you've ever read Street Lit before, which I think I may need to delve into that a little bit more, but if you don't know what Street Lit is, I'm not going to go into it now. Just Google it. This is definitely a YA version of Street Lit without so much of the explicit content and language. And it really just is about drama that takes place at a high school. There's like 10, no, there's more like 12, it must be 12 to 14 of these books. And these were pivotal for a lot of people growing up. I don't know if I've read these when I was growing up, but I know that I've read some of them in, now this is the only one that I've read, but I've read more of this nature, like this YA Street Lit. I've read quite a few of these just for work because a lot of the kids that I work with like these books. But if you're looking for something like that, I would recommend checking out Drama High. The next book that I have on this list is another Jacqueline Woodson. It is The Dear One. This one is an important book. It tackles teen pregnancy, which is something that I don't know if I see a lot in YA books. I could be wrong. I just haven't read a lot. And it is about a young girl by the name of Fenny who is curious about why her mother was so willing to take in a 15-year-old girl who is pregnant and decides to keep her in the house until she gives birth to her child. And Fenny learns to build a relationship with this girl, and she learns to understand the predicament that this young lady is in. And it is an interesting book. I definitely struggled a little bit with Fenny because I think it was just, I couldn't put myself into her shoes at some points because she was younger and she didn't really understand, and she was very judgmental at some points. But I think this is a great book that looks at character growth and development and what that experience could be like for another young girl to see another young girl pregnant and having to deal with the responsibility of taking care of a child. The next one that I have on this list, of course I couldn't not include another Jason Reynolds book because I just had to. I just like, you know, I put two in the middle grade section by Jason Reynolds, but I'm gonna include another one by Jason Reynolds on this list, and it is For Everyone. And this is one of his lesser known works. It is a long poem that he wrote in his 20s about realizing your dreams and knowing that you don't have to use anybody else as this measure of being successful. I've seen this around, like, not the book, but just people now coming to terms with there's no certain age at which you have to complete your dreams. Like people saying like, oh, I have to have kids by this age, or I have to have my own home by this age, because everybody reaches their goals at their own speed and pace, and that's okay. And it's okay to just go by whatever speed is appropriate for you and not to measure yourself up to other people. It was just a beautiful poem because Jason Reynolds is just a beautiful person. But I definitely recommend checking this one out and listening to it on audio because he does read it. And the last one that I have in the YA section is one that I have talked about a lot on my channel. It is not out yet, and it is by an author that I am definitely trying to explore more, and it is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I don't even have to say much about this book because I have a full review, spoiler-free review of this book. It is amazing. This book does not come out till September of this year, but if you have not read Grown yet, I need you to pick it up. I got an e-arc of it, and I will be purchasing a finalized finished copy because Tiffany D. Jackson is just, she is that woman. And I have not even read her other 3 books yet. I own 2 of her other 3, but just off of this first book, if her writing is anything like it was in Grown, you've got to read this book. You've got to check it out. So pre-order this book. Since we're doing the blackout for the New York best sellers list, pre-order Grown, please. Do yourself a favor and pre-order that book. Hey y'all, so I actually forgot a book in the middle grade section, so I'm gonna throw that in here now, and that is The Watsons Go to Birmingham by Christopher Paul Curtis. If you've never heard of him, you need to check out his works too. He is an important staple in children's and middle grade books, and The Watsons Go to Birmingham, the movie, first of all, is really good, and the audiobook is hilarious. It is about this family, the Watsons, who decide to go down south for the summer, and they learn the dark history that the South has with the Black community and traveling to go see their grandmother. It is filled with light moments, and it is filled with moments that are super, super dark, but it is such a good work of literature that I always push this book on people. I push this book on people when they come into the library. I'm like, have you read The Watsons Go to Birmingham? If you haven't, I recommend listening to it as an audiobook as a family. It is definitely a good audiobook to listen to as a family. I remember when I first read this book, I was listening to it, and I know it's been a while because I was listening to it on the audio CD disc and not digitally. But I remember listening to it and literally driving my car and laughing my ass off because it was so funny. I have not read anything else by Christopher Paul Curtis, but trust and believe I will. I think I have Elijah Buxton already checked out on my Libby account, so look for some more of his works on this channel coming very, very soon. All right, y'all, so that is it. Those are 25 books. This video is so freaking long. 25 books for you to check out on Juneteenth by Black authors with Black characters. So I hope that you all enjoy. I hope that you all have learned something today. I hope there are a couple books that you can possibly look to check out from your library or purchase for your own collection, for your kids, your cousin, your grandma, your cousin, them, whoever. I really hope that you have enjoyed this. If you guys want to see a part 2 of this, let me know in the comments below. And it won't be anything that happens within the next month or so. You gotta give me like a few more months in between doing this, because these videos are gonna end up taking a long time. Recommendation videos just take a long time in general, and if I'm doing this great volume of books in one sitting, it will take me a while to film and edit. But let me know if you do want to see more of these. I may move towards doing the adult books first, and then we can go back to the children's middle grade and YA stuff. But yeah, I had fun. I hope you guys did too. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. Hit the bell for notifications. Remember, I upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with the occasional surprise video on a Saturday or a Sunday. All of my links for social media will be down in the description box below, as well as some affiliate links. Reach out to me, comment, do whatever. I try to talk to you guys as much as I can. You know, I'm working on that. I'm working on that a lot. But I'll be back with another video soon.